Rebel Force Radio presents
Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail.
The fight is done. We lost. Stay hidden.
Where is he?
This is the RFR Obi-Wan Kenobi After Show.
Oh man, I am minty fresh from just watching this week's episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, I'm still processing it. There was a ton to think about, to evaluate, reevaluate with this episode. And I hope for some of you that are on the fence, and I'm not talking about those of you that have already thrown in the towel and you think that this is, you know, the end of the world for Star Wars, this Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I'm talking about those of you that are maybe slightly more reasonable and you're on the fence. I hope that this episode did something for you, because it certainly did a lot for me, though I've been enjoying the hell out of the whole series, to be honest. Yeah, we've got our nits to pick. That's what we're doing here on the Rebel Force Radio After Show for Obi-Wan Kenobi. We make this a place where you can pick all the nits that you like. But there gets to be a point where you critique it so much to the point where you're hating it. And it's like, well, I mean, I understand you have the right to hate whatever you want, but you know, why waste your time with an after show on something that you hate? If you're here to have thoughtful and fun discussion, then you're in the right place. If you love Star Wars, you're in the right place. If you're fresh from watching the Obi-Wan Kenobi show Part 5, you're definitely in the right place. And so we're going to get to it. This, like I say, was full of lots of stuff. There was a lot of little gems and nuggets hidden in the dialogue. And, you know, if last week's episode I felt was a little filler, it felt like it was stretching the series a little bit. There was a lot packed in this episode, and I'm so excited to be breaking it all down with you all. And, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Another Wednesday, another Kenobi discussion. This has been outrageously fun. The anticipation for each episode, Sunday nights, it usually starts kicking in. And it seemed like there was a long stretch of time between Part 4 and Part 5. And a lot of fans felt like they needed their thirst quenched after being introduced to Darth Vader and his brutality in Part 3. And then for Part 4, yeah, it was kind of repetitious. It was kind of a little unnecessary pit stop along the way with the big story. But here we're jumping right back on the rails with Part 5 and giving us a lot of good stuff. Just, you know, surface value stuff. Right out of the box. I am so impressed with the way Darth Vader is being presented in this series, from the lighting to the shape of the helmet. I don't think he's looked better or more menacing since Return of the Jedi. There's just something so perfect about it. And the voice. And of course, they're being coy with the voice. James Earl Jones, of course, providing the voice via technology is how I believe this is going down. Is my video getting a little choppy?
Little choppy. We can. Your audio is just.
Yeah,
fine.
I wonder why we're running into so many issues with that this week. But when those mysteries get resolved, I think we might find out that Hayden Christensen is actually providing some of the performance here. Going through the speecher technology. Coming out the other end is James Earl Jones. Or it could be Jones reading all the dialogue, and they're just making him sound younger like they did with Mark Hamill.
They're de-aging the voice, right? Basically.
Little voice de-aging.
Right.
But how far can you put? Could we actually have Hayden Christensen providing that James Earl Jones voice?
Well,
via performance.
I mean, I remember, Jim, when you brought us the video of the demonstration of this technology, and it was one of the creators of the tech speaking into a microphone, and it was coming out as Barack Obama. That was the demo. So I would imagine I'm guessing that it's easier, maybe more accurate, if you take a old Mark Hamill and try to turn it into a young Mark Hamill kind of voice. Probably simpler than taking your voice and making it Darth Vader, or Hayden Christensen's voice and making it Darth Vader.
But of course, there's the authenticity factor there, too.
Well, what I'm most amazed about with the Vader stuff is the diction and the emphasis of various words like that only James Earl would do. I mean, in my mind, only James Earl would do. But I mean, you take some of the great Vader impersonations and some of the better fan films and stuff, and nobody really nails it. In fact, I'll go a step further and say that even James Earl himself, with his appearances in the animation, doesn't quite nail it. This, like you say, this feels like he just walked off of, the set of Return of the Jedi or The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, and he's been framed in so many cool-looking shots, too. That shot in this episode of him standing on the Star Destroyer bridge, flying through hyperspace with the blue streaks of light going by the cockpit window, or the bridge window, I should say. We used it for our show art this week because I was so taken by it. I thought, wow, that's just a great shot. I love that shot. And in other, previous episodes, when we were looking at him being shot through the flames in part 2. I mean, there's just some really great stuff. And we saw more in this one as well.
Yeah. And then, of course, we got to talk about that lightsaber battle without a lightsaber, which was really wild. But so there's a ton to get through. Let's start it officially with the tale of the tape here. We are talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is part 5, episode 5, chapter 5, part 5, as this series refers to it. Original air date June 15th, 2022. Directed, of course, by Deborah Chow. And the writers on this getting credit are Joby Harold and Andrew Stanton. And, I mean, they wasted no time. I mean, one of the first images we get is the long-awaited flashback. Now, I got to pick my nit. Can I pick my nit right out of the gate?
You going to pick a nit?
I'm going to pick a nit.
Pick a nit.
I'm going to pick a nit. Because one of the things that really excited me about having Hayden back is the opportunity to make up for the lack of on-screen friendship, loyalty, camaraderie between Obi-Wan and Anakin, which is what the Clone Wars did so well. And as much as, we love seeing Ewan and Hayden together, I don't think that they'll ever be able to quite match the chemistry of James Arnold Taylor and Matt Lanter, who worked together for many, many years on the series, because they've just worked together more, in that capacity. And they also had scripts, dialogue that was written friendly. They had an opportunity to give life to the characters at that moment, in those moments. So I was, we still have another episode to go, but I was a little disappointed that they used the flashback to show what we've already seen of the Hayden and Ewan versions of the characters, which is that there's this kind of, there's this tension and there's maybe a little bit of distrust and there's dark side showing out of Anakin. I feel like rivalry, that we've been there, done that. I was hoping that if we can, for the sake of this discussion right now, Jim, think of the whole, flashback sequence and we'll get to the other parts later. But I was waiting for there to be a break. There was a little break when the duel was over and there was kind of a little, smile and shrug and they kind of went off and probably had, blue milk together or whatever. But I was hoping that there would be a glimpse of a little bit more of that bond and that friendship.
Okay, that's a good thing too. And yeah, we did see it in the Clone Wars, but this is live action.
Right.
This is where we want to see that stuff. We want to see the chemistry between Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. And I was happy to see these sequences. My God, I was so happy because so many people were really, really wanting to see some sort of flashback sequence of these two together as Jedi. And I was so happy for them. And it just would have been another missed opportunity. We don't want to see any more missed opportunities in Star Wars. We got to be grabbing the bull by the horns right now. Still reeling over the fact that there wasn't a big 3 reunion in the sequel trilogy. But what are you going to do? You can't turn back time. Right. But I'm still reeling from it. I'll admit that. Let's not miss any more opportunities. So this was a great opportunity to show them as youths again, Jedi youths, training, and then of course Ben gets the upper hand on him.
Yes,
and there's a little lesson there that I think resonates into dialogue from A New Hope. a lot of people talk about that line, when I left you, I was but the learner, now I'm the master, and how this Kenobi series might be deflating the weight of that dialogue a little bit. But this flashback was designed to show us that moment in their training when Obi-Wan calls him out for trying to prove himself, trying to prove a point, as opposed to actually staying focused on the job at hand, or the duel at hand, or what have you. And he says something along the lines of, your desire to prove yourself, as long as you have that as a part of your arsenal, that you'll always be my Padawan. So, I mean, the line is drawn, right?
Yeah. Well,
the line is drawn right there. And so I think that resonates on the, when I left you, I was but the learner, now I'm the master. I think when they finally do have their showdown in the final episode, there's going to be a feeling of emptiness for Vader at the end, as if he failed, and the thing that is going to fail him is he's going to, again, try to prove himself. I really hope the final episode has conversation between Anakin and Ben and Vader.
Yes.
I want conversation,
because I found some of the most fulfilling parts of this episode, the conversation between Obi-Wan and Reva. I love that. I was really hungry for that. But here's where I thought you were going with your analysis of that line, when I left you, I was but the, and I confess, I got hung up on that line. But I think that we're misreading it. I think some people are taking it very literally. When I left you, I was but the learner, now I am the master. As if at our last encounter, I was but the learner, now I'm the master. I don't think that's what it means. When I left you, when I left the Jedi Order, when I turned my back on all of this BS, yeah, I was the learner, but now I'm the master. So I don't think it's necessarily about, I've heard some people even misquote the line and say, when I last left you, I was but the learner.
Left you.
It's not when I last left you. It's when I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. So, of course, we're retconning this stuff, guys. It was written in 1975, 1976, whatever. But I think that it works. I think that it works. So I don't take that line as literal. He doesn't say at our last encounter. He just says when I left you. Also wanted to mention the effects, the deep fake. Well, I guess not deep fake. It's the de-aging. I thought did really, really well. I didn't
even notice it. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I was being
de-aging going on there. I was like, hey, they look older, but I'll let it slide.
Oh, maybe they weren't really de-aging. I assumed they were. I noticed that, in the case of Ewan, Hayden, he definitely looked a little bit older, but I think that's just the nature of the age that he was. And Ewan, I think he's got a good 10, 15 years probably on Hayden, I think, maybe even more. There is, as you get older, you go through these zones where you don't really age. Then all of a sudden you hit that number and bam, now all of a sudden you're aging monthly. But
one bad summer, my friend, one bad summer.
But
all it takes.
But again, those are minor details, and it's like I'm glad we're getting these stories, and I'm glad we're getting these actors back in the roles, and the fact that technology, even if technology only helps a little, fine, I don't care. I'm just happy to see them. I'm happy to see them back and telling these stories. Loved the flashback. Thought it was cool. Was hoping maybe for some more Clone Wars references, like maybe wearing some of the clothing. I mean, they went episode 2 pre-Geonosis Anakin for this. This wasn't necessarily Clone Wars era Anakin. So
you're right.
They went a little further back.
Right. It could be just like, so let's try to pinpoint that flashback on the timeline, for all the chronology freaks. Right. So this happened probably just prior to the events of Attack of the Clones. That's my guess.
I would agree.
That's where I put it.
Yeah. So then we end up on the bridge, and Reva is christened Grand Inquisitor. Vader has her kneel. You see a little bit of apprehension. I don't know. I caught that when he says to kneel. And her instinct is, screw you. I don't kneel to anybody. But she had to play the part. And as we have been speculating, since frankly, Jim, you were talking about a turn for her character before we even saw the first episode of the series. We had just seen the trailer.
Yeah.
Though I will say where the episode ends, the jury's still out. We don't know exactly what's going on with Reva. We know that Obi-Wan gets a tremor in the Force, that through the communicator, she's able to pick up some garbled words from Bail Organa that would lead her back or someone back to Tatooine, to a farmer named Owen.
There were three specific words that came through. Boy, Tatooine, Owen.
Yeah.
Those were the three words that really came through.
Yeah. And so, it's likely he doesn't quite know exactly what is giving him this, bad feeling in the Force, but we know. Now, we've got one more episode to wrap this up. I would love to think that it's going to be a longer episode. I hope it's at least an hour, because we left, Reva, her trajectory as a character in this episode. I mean, she went from the highest highs to the very lowest lows, being inducted as the Grand Inquisitor, and then, ends the episode impaled by her own blade. And we find out that really the other Grand Inquisitor is still alive. And then we get the confirmation with the flashback that she was indeed that Padawan at the Jedi Temple.
Yes.
Now, here's a question for you, because I was watching this with my family, and there was speculation in my house that she was impaled by Anakin's saber in the Jedi Temple. And she was sort of reliving that moment. It happened to her twice, which then starts me thinking, well, how did she survive the first time? Will that enable her to survive a second time? Is she a mod? Did she somehow, is she, synthetic or droid, in the midsection? I don't know. And you certainly are unsure exactly where her loyalties are at the end. I mean, she can't go crawling back to Vader. No. But yet at the same time, she's awfully interested in unraveling this mystery of Kenobi and what he's still doing around, and finding the communicator. So where do you think this episode leaves Reva?
Well, obviously she's going to survive.
Oh, you think for sure?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, why even waste time with that communicator? I mean, who in their dying breath is going to be like, oh, what is that? A crushed cell phone? Let me go grab that and see what kind of strangers' messages I can decode. I mean, how would she even have any clue? Now, that is a Jedi communicator, however.
Right.
I think that's well established. So, I mean, she sees a piece of Jedi tech. I think she's assuming it belongs to Kenobi. So I cut it some slack right there. But why did Ben give all that stuff? What did he give to Najee? He gave him a
lightsaber. Haja. He gave him a lightsaber. Gave him a blaster, and he gave him that communicator.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what his method behind the madness was right there.
Yes, when he gave up his weaponry. Of course, I was thinking of the line, what's in there, only what you take with you. He was surrendering himself. He was unarmed.
I get that. I just don't understand why, out of all those people in the cave, you're going to give it to Najee, who is really proven himself to be shady.
Right.
And even still acting shady in the cave when he explains to Ben that he's on the run, and he knows what it feels like to be a Jedi now, but he does recognize the good business opportunities that are available to him in the cave. It's like, dude, you're just as shady as you were. There's no character development going on here for him. So, I mean, I just didn't understand the rationale behind him giving that stuff to Najee. Like, I would have given it to O'Shea Jackson Jr. maybe. He seemed to be much more responsible and in control.
Yeah.
So,
maybe
figure.
there's something about, the trust in the underdog. I mean, is Haja the Jar Jar Binks? Is Haja, is Haja the guy
that'll stick? Swink said that Kumail Nanjiani is the Jar Jar Binks of Kenobi. That's all over Twitter right now as we speak.
Twitter doesn't care about me anymore. But no, I was just wondering if there was an aspect of that you kind of, do you use the clown, as the disguise, in a way? The last guy you would expect.
The last person.
Right.
He's the last, naturally with Roken, is that his name? O'Shea Jackson?
O'Shea Jackson, right.
Obviously, he isn't the man in charge. So he'd be under the most scrutiny should the stormtroopers capture them. So maybe, there is
right.
a little bit of method to the madness, I think.
You kind of hide it in plain sight. You hide it with the clown, the guy that stands out, and you're like,
yeah.
What are you going to do with that guy? So you believe that Reva lives to fight another day. This is the last we've seen of her. I did, and this is rumor stuff. We don't really engage too much of it here on the after show, but there are some rumors about. I heard that they're giving her own show. There's going to, that she's going to get her own backstory series, and we're going to find out how she got, to be, to the Inquisitorium, and her adventures maybe as an Inquisitor. She escaped the Jedi Temple. Her story was really something. I mean, it was a very dramatic moment. She's retelling her story, with the wall, the door between her and Kenobi, and she hid among the dead bodies of the children, and it was intense. It was intense. I kept looking at my son, my 9-year-old son, as we're watching the episode, and his eyes were as big as, saucers, dining plates when she was talking. When kids hear about other kids. And then when Tala talks about the family, the 14 people and 6 of them were children, 4 sensitives that were executed. I noticed that he kind of perked, his. I want to just say, despite, there probably being a lot more action in the Book of Boba Fett, it just didn't click with him. But Kenobi is really, a lot of this has to do with ages, but if you've got, younglings in the house and you're like, I don't know if they're going to be into this Kenobi, my 9-year-old is loving it, is really loving it.
Well, the stakes get really raised pretty high when they show those flashbacks to Order 66.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Anakin storming the temple with the 501st troopers, and you even see a kid take a blaster bolt right to the chest. I mean, this is Disney is providing us a much more graphic and brutal look at Order 66 than George Lucas ever did.
For sure. And you start the episode and they even have a disclaimer on there saying that some of the scenes might be.
That's how you know it's going to be good. Yeah.
That's right.
It's going to make people upset. Let's watch.
Yeah, right. If it's not making people mad, it's not going to be worth watching. And then we got Lola. Now, Lola's interesting because on the one hand, you got, Lola. We know Lola has a tracker.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that Lola was under some kind of remote control by the enemy to go in there and sabotage the doors. And then what I didn't pick up on was how did Lola turn back? Because then it seemed like Lola was helping Leia when she, sort of got the sense that there was something perhaps wrong with the mechanics.
Well, she saw the restraining bolt under the wing, and that's what alerted her to.
I missed that
So
part.
she plucked that thing off. She plucked this little tiny restraining bolt off from the inside of the wing.
Like a scab.
And that turned Lola's lights from red to blue, and we're back in action with Lola. But Lola, she was kind of being controlled, given commands to do things to sabotage the operation. I believe it was Lola who closed those doors in the first place. And that was on an order from Darth Vader. Darth Vader told Third Sister, trap him in there, lock him down, and I will take care of him alone. So
I'm kind of glad he didn't say Lola. I don't know that I ever want Vader to say Lola. Right. Tell Lola to lock the doors. I don't know.
Lola.
Seems kind of silly.
Imperial Agent Lola.
Right.
Yes.
Hey, let's talk about Tala real quick. Speaking of agents and spies, I had speculated last week, I'm a big loser now that she's dead, but I had speculated that she was going to be the connection to the Andor series, that we'd be introduced to this great spy, and that would, lead into that show. Obviously not. She actually makes a she makes a great sacrifice. And also with the droid. What's the big droid's name? B1 Ned B. Like I should remember Ned Beatty. So the Ned Beatty droid, Mr. Luthor, he sacrifices himself too, very reminiscent of Rogue One, with K2SO.
Right.
And there was all this speculation, Jim, about Ned B and how there might be a Jedi actually hiding in there. And there's a moment you might remember Ned is providing cover a bit for Tala, and she looks down and she sees blood on her hand. And in the moment I thought, oh, the droid's bleeding. It is a human inside the skin of the droid. Yeah. And then my wife goes, no, that was her own blood. She's touching her stomach.
She clearly pulled.
She
her
realizes
hand away from the wound on her stomach, and she looked, and it didn't look good.
No.
Her sacrifice reminded me a little bit of Val's in Solo, when Val lit the explosive to take out that bridge.
Yeah.
And so she sacrificed herself. But in this situation with Tala, it's much higher cause she's fighting for, not just to steal a train shipment. She's this is a really just and profound sacrifice she makes, because she's trying to protect the Jedi and these families and everything.
Yeah. This I love this. I really do think this sort of Underground Railroad parallel with the Path is very cool. And I guess we're to assume, I'll ask you, that all of those sort of refugees, whatever you want to call them, those people that are going on the Path, are likely Force sensitives or have Force sensitives in their families. So they're hiding out and trying to get safe passage to systems where maybe the Empire has less control or less surveillance. I mean, for those that are looking for some meat on the bones of the Reva character, I think that discussion that she has through the door with Kenobi, where I love the way he pieces together how she had to have been there, because he says Anakin would have wanted to keep this secret. The only way you can know. Yes, it would want the only way you can know. And you'd be, there's only one way you could know, and that's if you were there that night.
Yes. And that gives us some narrative too as an audience. So now we know that the galaxy doesn't recognize Darth Vader as Anakin Skywalker. That mystery is still intact.
He's not doing talk shows on the HoloNet.
Right. He's not showing up at luncheons or, talking at fundraisers. This guy is working in the shadows. He's hanging out on his castle on Mustafar, and he keeps to himself largely.
Yeah. Many tie-in authors died when they learned of this.
So I'm glad to see they maintain the mystery of Vader. Something interesting about those people in the cave. Yeah, I think it is assumed, especially with the children, that they are Force sensitive. So Ben Kenobi, as this whole group of Force sensitive people in the cave, he should have started training a little bit. Maybe a better chance.
He had an hour.
He had an hour. I mean, how much time did he take with Luke on the Millennium Falcon? And the next thing you know,
5
Luke's
minutes?
blowing up the Death Star. 5 minutes on the Millennium Falcon. Then Luke's blowing up the Death Star and saving the princess.
What could he done with 120 Force-sensitive kids in an hour without Han, mocking them the whole time?
Oh, Jesus. So you got these Force sensitives, but, I assume mostly they were children. And also Ben was trying to fire up his own Force mojo. And so, he had his hands full with that.
Right.
And you do see progression. You see progression through each part of the series, how he regains a little bit more of his Jedi capabilities. And then you get these little visual touchstones where it's like he's wearing the Jedi robe now. Last episode, he was wearing the Jedi,
the tunic,
smock or the tunic. So, each episode, he's gradually reclaiming his Jedi mojo.
And how cool was it to see the remnants of the Jedi that have come and gone through the path? The lightsabers, the cloak. And now we know when we see likely when we see the Alec Guinness version in A New Hope, that's a robe that he may have gotten from, in this moment on, along the path. And I'm glad you brought that up, because this idea of him reclaiming himself, we know that by the time we meet him in A New Hope, that he has to have the confidence and the moxie to walk around wearing Jedi robes and a lightsaber hanging from his belt. Right. So that fear has got to be gone of being hunted. And I'm looking forward to that. Hey, something that I wanted to mention, we were talking about the flashback, despite me picking my nits about, not really showing the friendship aspect of their relationship, I thought that juxtaposing the action of the episode with Kenobi sort of playing almost this chess game with Vader based on what he recalled of a pattern that Anakin had as his Padawan, I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was a really fun way to tell the story. Very cool.
Yeah, it really worked with the rhythm and the narrative of the whole episode. Each one of those flashbacks was significant in its presence, none of it was just thrown away, and they were legitimate flashbacks too. There was no gimmick involved. There were no back to tanks. There were no force backs. There was none of that stuff. This was just, hey, here's a good old fashioned flashback. We don't need to explain it to you. We value you as an audience, and we're not going to dumb this down for you and explain any of it. You'll figure it out. And that's kind of a rare occasion in Star Wars when that happens. I don't like when Star Wars over explains itself. And so just like a simple execution of a flashback is something that I look at and I go, okay, good. You're valuing us as an audience. You don't take for granted the things we know and waste our time over explaining things.
Yes. There were some what I thought were sort of, I don't know if they're homages with intent, but there were some moments that I got thinking about the standoff on Crate with Luke and buying time to get the people out. So I was thinking a little bit of The Last Jedi, and it didn't make me mad. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And there were some, I don't know, I was thinking Hoth a little bit, Vader coming in and storming and coming out of light speed. And so I was kind of getting some of those vibes a little bit. But at the end of the day, Vader tells Reva to stand down. He's going to be the one to go in and take Kenobi. And that's that arrogance, that need to prove himself that Obi-Wan points out is Anakin's undoing. That's his Achilles heel.
It's just the selfish nature of the dark side. It's all about self-fulfillment, and obviously, but I think it's a two-way street. I think there's a lot of unfinished business on Ben's side as well, and a final showdown would be great. And yeah, will the showdown happen with sabers drawn? Will it be more of a mental battle? Could they like come together somehow in the Force and have it out, you know, on the mystical plane of the Force.
I read something
there's all
over the
kinds of different ways you can
weekend.
access this.
I read something over the weekend, and I don't typically dwell on fan theories, even though, I mean, because I make up plenty of my own. I hear them from you. I hear them from
picking
FJ.
them out on these microphones
Right,
every
exactly.
week.
But there was one, it was like, could Anakin and Obi-Wan be a Force dyad, a la Rey and Kylo? And I gave that some thought because they were using the back-to-tank moment where they were both in back-to-tanks and they were both having flashbacks, or I guess flashbacks of their battle that they had. And I mean, it was kind of interesting, but then I was like, no, I don't see them as a dyad. I just find it, we're led to believe that that's a very rare thing. And so the odds of Obi-Wan and Anakin being a dyad, and then, Palpatine's granddaughter and Anakin's granddaughter, or not Anakin's granddaughter, Palpatine's granddaughter, and Rey being a dyad just seemed very
You were close.
I was
grandson
close.
and Rey.
Grandson. Yeah. Sorry, grandson.
Yeah, but I mean, that's, again, we're over-explaining things.
Yeah.
All we need to know is that they have a connection as master and Padawan.
Yes, that's enough. That's
all
enough.
we need. You don't need the dyad discussion or anything.
No. And that's sort of the midichlorian trap that you fall into. Like, you need some sort of like almost scientific way to explain something that's supposed to be very spiritual and metaphysical. I do want to talk about that wild duel with Vader and Reva. Was just insane as he was. We're seeing this. We're seeing the Vader that we see in Empire Strikes Back. The way he plays with Luke, like he's a mouse. A cat and mouse game, and he does that with Reva. He's almost getting pleasure out of it. It's a lightsaber battle, in the way I was describing it. It's a lightsaber battle where only one side has a lightsaber. He's actually dueling with her, but using the Force. Everything she tries to do is thwarted by his Force abilities, and it is mind-blowing. But the most mind-blowing thing of the entire episode in my mind is when he held that cruiser. He held that cruiser back, brought it down as it was trying to escape the atmosphere of the planet, brings it down, and in a rage rips open the hull, only to find that it was obscuring the actual, cruiser that was taking the, Obi-Wan and the rest out of there. It was a very sort of, I guess we might say, Force Unleashed kind of moment. Though there is precedent with what we see Rey do with Chewie's transport in the Rise of Skywalker.
But it's cooler because it's Darth Vader doing it.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's cooler because
Instantly cooler.
Yes.
Instantly cooler.
It is instantly cooler. But I thought it was very reminiscent of Force Unleashed, and again, I didn't mind it. I remember, Jim, when there were rumors about what we were going to see when Luke Skywalker returned in the sequel films, and we were told in rumors and secret reports that we were going to see a very Force Unleashed style Luke, that he was going to have these incredible abilities to bring Star Destroyers down. And, he spent all this time, becoming one with the Force in such a way that he would have these monstrous abilities. And I thought, wow, how cool would that be to see Luke Skywalker be able to do that kind of stuff? It was not to happen, but we kind of saw a little bit with Vader. So I was just so caught up in it. As I've said before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, when I'm being thoroughly entertained, I don't question things as much. And I think that this was done in a really, really entertaining and exciting manner. And, I don't know how I'll feel about it tomorrow, next week, next year. Who knows? Things change. Your feelings about these things change. But right now, I was super jazzed about it and loved the confrontation. It was a lot of fun to watch.
The confrontation between Vader and
Reva.
And Reva, yeah. I agree with that. And I think that's the first time we've ever seen in live action Red Saber versus Red Saber. I don't think we've ever seen that in live
Funny
action.
you say that, because that was young Parker's observation. We've never seen Red versus Red, he said.
Never seen Red before. Red v. Red.
Yeah.
Crimson Blades connect.
Though we did see it on the teaser poster for Return of the Jedi. Remember that? Anakin or Vader and Luke both had red sabers in that teaser poster where it was the Vader helmet.
No. You're confused.
Or am I confusing something? Please correct me. Keep me honest.
The saber blades were flip-flopped. Vader had the blue saber and Luke had the red
That's
saber.
what it was. Thank you. Yes. That's what it was. My bad. My bad.
Yeah, that was the Revenge of the Sith teaser post.
Revenge of the Jedi.
Which was a Revenge of the Jedi. Yeah, you're right. Sith, Jedi, Revenge, Return. It all gets jarbled up in my head sometimes, but believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I saw in the flashbacks, Anakin was using the one-handed style, which is consistent with Vader, who also uses the one-handed style in Empire Strikes Back. And then, when he was messing around with Reva too, toying with Reva. I noticed a lot of Rogue One-esque music surrounding Vader. Very similar to the Michael Giacchino stuff, more so than the John Williams thing. A lot of people are complaining we're not getting Imperial March and all this. Here's my rationale behind that. Allow me to be an apologist. Soundtrack.
Because I'm annoyed by the lack of Imperial March too.
This isn't about the Empire. This is about Vader. This has nothing to do with the Empire. This is a personal thing for him. Yeah, he's using the trappings of the Empire, like their Star Destroyers and Inquisitors, but this is all about Vader confronting Obi-Wan. And so I think the use of the Imperial March in this situation might be a little inappropriate. When Vader storms the Hoth base, Echo base, and the Imperial March theme is playing, that's appropriate because he is there as an agent of the Empire. In this show, he's working on a personal mission. And he's more Anakin than Vader. He's more Anakin in this show than he wants to be, even though that hasn't really been fully exposed yet. He is more Anakin than he has felt in 10 years. He'd be the last to admit it, though.
Right.
He'll be the last to admit it. It's just because all these wounds are open again.
Well, he's clearly having I mean, you can't take it literally necessarily, but it seems as though we're to assume that he's having similar flashbacks about Kenobi and his Padawan days as Kenobi is having about Anakin, because as they're resolving out of these flashbacks, sometimes you're resolving back into Kenobi, sometimes you're resolving back into Vader. So they're both in their own heads about their history.
That's a great way to look at it. Because I wasn't drawing any connection to the flashbacks and the individual necessarily, but I like the way you're looking at it. Who do they show first right after these flashbacks?
It goes back and forth.
Who are those flashbacks a commentary on as far as their character and the motivations?
Yeah.
That's I like that. I'm going to rewatch the episode with that in mind for sure. Jabim was in Dark Horse Comics. That's where that comes from. Did you see the hidden Mickey's first shot of the?
Oh no, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm real glad I didn't. And I'm on a Disney high too, coming back from Disneyland, and but I
sent you a screen grab. Oh, everyone wants to see it. I sent you a screen grab.
All right, I'm gonna pull it up. While I'm doing that, I want to throw the phone line up here real quick. 708-866-1737. Lots of opinions, lots of very very vocal folks in the chat. That's okay. That's okay. By the way, meet our good friend Tyler Page. He's here with us on these after shows. He's our official call screener. Tyler, sorry I didn't introduce you at the top of the show. It was just so exciting. We had to get right into it, man.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, I just want to talk to all my friends about this too. And you had a few sneak in before the call number went up and had a good chat with them. So there's a few loaded up, but definitely some room for more.
Good. I would imagine it seems like the comments are quite passion-filled, we might say.
Yeah.
But hey, make sure that we're giving we're giving voice to all sides of this. So I see you on there, DCB Discerns. I see you on there saying, "What happened to you? Jimmy Mack, what happened to you, Jason? How do you like this? Well, call us up, man. The number is 708-866-1737. Let's talk about it. Call us up. 708-866-1737. So, Tyler, thanks for doing what you do. Appreciate it very much. And let's see. We've got this. So here it is. Is this the hidden Mickeys?
Yeah, you have to zoom in and look at the
zoom in.
bottom left center.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah,
right
above
here.
You can see there's like these two giant hangar bay doors, and they're clearly the Mickey Mouse ears. So there you go.
All righty. All right. Well, yeah, glad you're here, Tyler. I'll let you get back to it. We've got the line. We'll check back in with Tyler. We always like to hear what he thought about the episode. And we'll get to the phones. But before we do have some super chats, a lot of super chats, including a super sticker, which I have to confess, I have no idea what that means, but it's $1.99. Super Air Force One says, a microphone. Yep, I got one. Jimmy Max got one.
Yeah. I paid more than $1.99 for it.
And Qui-Gon J says, oldest Padawan in history. Yeah, there's a few wrinkles. You know, he's got some crow's feet, Anakin / Hayden. But you know what? I'm just, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What would you rather do? Would you rather see it recast? You want to see it recast?
There's like a filter on Instagram where you can kind of blur your face a little bit to remove wrinkles and blemishes and stuff. That's what they should have done. Just like
now, I got to say, yeah, you're right. Here's the thing that's been a little bit frustrating for me, and I'll just say it. Why do I feel as though the internet has better technology than Lucasfilm? Why? I don't understand. Why are the fan edits of this stuff better than what they're pulling off? Now, in the Disney galleries, they sort of talk about all the different technologies that they considered when bringing back young Luke Skywalker, and they line them all up. And in there, I remember watching this, and they were like, and the deep fake just wasn't quite right. And I'm looking at the deep fake going, no, it looks fantastic. It looks fantastic. So they went with a third way. There were various. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I do know that they went with an alternative to deepfake. Then they hired that deepfake guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's see. Wow. Ooh, man, people are excited. They want to talk. They want to talk tonight. What's this? This is Fred O'Connor says, you can't win, but there are alternatives to fighting. This episode was a great callback to such a great Kenobi line from A New Hope. The way he thought his way out of this problem was fantastic. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That he does sort of have a very similar line in this episode. There are alternatives to fighting it. And what does Han say? Damn fool! I knew you'd say something like that.
Exactly.
We got David says, what if Reva shows up on Tatooine and Yoda's sitting there waiting? She would certainly know him, and he would maybe remember her. Just a thought. So if she thinks that she's heading off to Tatooine to, I don't know what I got to say. It feels very ambiguous to me where Reva is in her own head at the end of this episode. She's not on Vader's side. That's clear, and it's clear that she's not necessarily on Obi-Wan's side. I think she's always been on her own side, at least since the purge at the temple. I don't know where her head's at.
It's tough to say. It's tough to say what her motivation would be from hearing that really kind of that message, because it wasn't very direct. I mean, she has to fill in a lot of the blanks. The only thing I could think of is if she comes to the conclusion that Darth Vader's son is being protected on Tatooine, she'll want to go get that kid to smoke him out.
To get another crack at Vader.
Yeah, to set up a trap for him, and I believe that's where things are heading. Things are going in that direction. I don't think Reva is going to survive that encounter. She's been on thin ice for quite a while now. So, sooner or later, Vader is going to catch up with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
putting into her whole thing. But I think it's important we learn a little more about her backstory, though. How did she slide in to become an Inquisitor? They said they found her in the gutter.
Yeah.
So do we even want to look at that on face value and say, well, they picked her up on Coruscant. She was living as a homeless person and they were out exterminating Force sensitives, and there was just something about
it was her
fire hatred,
yes. The Grand Inquisitor says it was about her thirst for revenge. He says it was useful at first, but now it's irritating. So they clearly sensed in her that there was a drive, a deep drive that was fueled by the dark side, wanting revenge. And so they used it to their advantage, keeping her in check. And they beat her up all the time, not physically, but verbally, and they kept her in her place. Tommy Lips says, thoughts on a Maul cameo in episode 6 to tease season 2.
Well,
dude, I don't know, Tommy. How are you going to go from Vader to Maul? I mean, that's like going from Megalodon to a little, a little bull shark or something. It's you don't use Vader to tease Maul.
A post-credit tease would be, I think, appropriate. Why not? I think you can go in that direction. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there is to be a season 2.
If there's to be,
I would like to see it. I would too.
Yeah.
No,
why
not?
Agree. I agree. Let's see. Let's go to the phones. Make sure that they can
you
hear
take
us.
this first caller. I have to step away for 2 minutes, okay?
All right.
You take this caller.
I'm
I'll
on
be
it.
right
Okay.
back.
All right. Jimmy Mack in a rare departure here, but let's go to Alex. Alex calling. Alex is a Patreon member, calling from West Virginia.
Hello there, Jason.
Hey, Alex. How you doing?
Oh, not bad. You guys are hitting all the points. I feel like we're having a very similar feeling about this episode. When Vader showed all that Force potential, I felt Force Unleashed, Starkiller vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Mace Windu out of the Gendy series. It was almost too much, but I liked it. I was with you. I want more of that. But for everything that I did enjoy, I did feel like we're kind of missing on the Inquisitors here a little bit. We're leaning into all of that too much. And I feel we're repeating a lot of plot beats, whereas with all the other stuff you said, we're breaking new ground and doing exciting things that we haven't seen before. But I feel like we're just seeing things that we've seen before being leaned into time and time again, like last episode with the Fallen Order plot beats, and now with Reva flipping. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I definitely agree with some of the criticism that the Inquisitors are a little one note, and Reva's a little one note, and was certainly the fifth brother is one note. Every line of dialogue of that guy, he's just exasperated and pissed off and, irritated by everything. So, yeah, I understand that. I don't think that, my feeling is maybe there's not a lot of depth to the Inquisitors. I mean, we're learning that Reva has an interesting backstory. She's a former Padawan that's somehow survived the purge of the Jedi Temple during Order 66. But maybe there's not a lot of depth or anything to really explore with the other Inquisitors. Maybe there are just sort of blunt instruments that have been not hypnotized, but perhaps manipulated by the dark side and Palpatine and all of that. So I get it.
Yeah, I feel like the way they were conceived in Rebels, they were never meant to be anything grander than what you say. And the ones like Trilla and Fallen Order and Reva now a little bit in Kenobi here, I think are trying to break that trend, but not quite bringing it enough. So I don't mind that they make the attempt, but if we do more stories with Kenobi or even just in this timeline, I'd like to see them move away from the Inquisitors a little bit and explore some other ideas.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, because going into this series, people are like, man, I hope we get to see more of the Inquisitors. Coming out of Rebels, felt like people wanted more of the Inquisitors. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I would love it. And again, this is one of those things where I don't think they have time necessarily to hit all of these notes, but I would love to see some evidence or proof or information that leads us to believe that the Inquisitors came from that weird nursery, the Palpatine nursery. I know we talk about it because it's such a wild concept, but it certainly is, would be an interesting way to go. And the other thing is, I'd like there to be some payoff about seeing all of those people in the Jurassic Park amber fluid.
Yeah, well, there has to be a payoff.
We got to learn from that. But what I see you had a couple of things you wanted to address. Did we hit them all there, Alex? You're a Patreon member.
I tried to go through it as quickly as possible and not repeat too much ground so everybody else could get theirs in. All
right, dude. Well, it was great to hear from you. Thanks for calling in, and good points.
Thank you.
Points. And again, that was a very reasonable discussion. With somebody who thought, well, maybe the Inquisitors and that whole idea is a little too one note for me, and I feel like I've seen enough of them at this point. Let's see. We've got first-time caller on the line, Jay from Philly. Jay calling in.
Jay.
Hello, Jay.
What's going on, fellas?
How are you doing?
Jay.
I'm good. I just had a thought while watching this week's episode. In issue 20 of the Star Wars comics that Marvel produced, Black Christensen goes after Luke. So I was thinking, since Reva is going to be out of commission from her wound, maybe she hires a bounty hunter.
Oh, Black Christensen, eh?
That could add
up. He, of course, the attack is forwarded by Obi-Wan, and he gets that iconic scar over his right eyebrow, over his left eyebrow. So, given the events of Book of Boba Fett is after Return of the Jedi, this would be, this would probably take place, obviously, before New Hope.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, I like I love when they sort of connect the various series through a character, even if it's a more ancillary character, to sort of create that thread, which I feel like they're really wanting to do with these shows. I don't read the comic. I don't know, Jim, was that one that you read and you? So
yes. That is the Star Wars Monthly, right? It's not the Vader comic, the Star Wars.
Oh, we lost Jay. But,
we did.
Thanks
I'm
for the call.
going to go back and reread issue 20. Obviously my focus is more on the live action, but I do take in and consume all of the different content. And it's just sometimes the comic books seem to be a little disposable to me, They kind of go through me real fast, like sometimes like a laxative. But
well, speaking of a laxative,
when they're good, they're good, young man.
We've got A. Draconius here with a super chat. Thank you very much. Do you think Reva going after Luke and the results of that is why Obi-Wan puts Maul down so quick when they encounter with each other in Rebels? Reva going after Luke and the results, is that why Obi-Wan? I think Obi-Wan puts Maul down so quick is because he's Darth Maul. And they have a lot of history together. I don't know that you need another reason other than that.
Yeah. I think that the time for them to talk it out was
hug it out
beyond them by the time.
Come on, bro. Let's hug it out.
Yeah, Maul's walking around the desert going Kenobi, and just losing his mind. I mean, it's like really. There it is. But yeah, that couldn't be allowed to continue any further. So zip. And that's it for Darth.
Here's Johnny. Johnny says, hi from Australia. These stormtroopers obviously trained at the Benny Hill School of Stormtrooping. Wow. They shoot, they miss. Bit unbelievable. Love you guys. Well, thanks,
are you
Johnny.
new to Star Wars, friend? Are you new to Star Wars? Jeez, 45 years those things couldn't hit the side of a barn. Come on.
Here's Emma. Emma says, did you love seeing Anakin killing younglings? Not about kids getting murdered, but about what it looked like from a youngling's perspective. Yeah, it was very graphic, and you got to see it not just from the youngling's perspective, but from Anakin's perspective as well. it was definitely, as Jim pointed out, much more graphic and up close than anything we saw in Revenge of the Sith. That's for sure.
And some great shots too of Hayden with the hood up.
Yeah.
And the blue lights reflecting on his face, and he's just got an evil look. I really dug that.
Yeah.
And anytime we get to go back and relive big moments from the saga and see them from a different perspective, or see them from someone else's eye, through someone else's eyes, I always really enjoy that. You know, whether they do it in live action or they do it sometimes in the comic books, or entire novels have been written telling the perspective of the events of the Battle of Yavin from like an Imperial,
right?
An Imperial officer went through the thing and stuff. And it could be hit or miss, but oftentimes it's a lot of fun. It's at with Gilderstern and Rosencrantz.
Oh yeah.
Different perspective of the.
I haven't read that.
Shakespeare
but I know that was super. Yeah, that was super popular, and there's a version of that. Yeah, in the Star Wars universe. Let's go to Ronan. Ronan's on the line right now. Hello, Ronan. Welcome to Rebel Force Radio. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, Jason and Jimmy. Thanks for having me again.
Sure.
What an episode. I mean, the first minute or so brought me back to 6 years old, because I was 6 years old when Attack of the Clones came out, and that was my first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters. And it's interesting that Anakin and Obi-Wan are characters I really like, but not my top 5 favorite, and yet somehow I was a 6-year-old again. So if Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen ever hear this or see this, I'd like to thank them for doing that, because rarely does that happen in life.
Yeah, no, it's very cool when your heroes come back and visit, and it's I think that's maybe you understand now a little bit how some of us that grew up with the original trilogy felt when our heroes came back for the sequel trilogy, and the weight that we put on that moment. And, whether it paid off for you or not, it was either super exciting or very disappointing, depending on your point of view. But,
for me,
it's fascinating.
Go ahead, buddy. No, you go, Ronan. You're our guest.
Fascinating that thank you. That's what's fascinating, that I first saw the original trilogy before the prequels. And, I'm a kid from the mid-'90s. So it's a miracle that I watched those old 70s, 80s movies and dug them for what they are. But, and they're glorious. They're glorious. It's not wasting opportunities, like Jimmy said ago about, the trio not being in a single frame together, which I also feel like that was a missed opportunity. But, if the Force wills it, the Force wills it. But I'd like to ask you a question about the rumors about them potentially doing a season 2. People have been saying this is the most viewed show on Disney Plus, and I am on the mind that I like the show. I don't love it. I do see it having highs and lows, but I also can say that I haven't lost any sleep over it. I'm not shouting out they're ruining my childhood. I'm not saying that, Disney's done it again. I'm not yelling to the hills. I see that, this, and, Filoni has always said this, and that, accept how the story comes. You may not agree with it, but I felt at least each episode should have been at least a solid hour. That way you have a solid 6-hour event series. And, if you want to tell more, you could tell more, but it would have been pure poetic tome poem series for me. What do you fellas think about that?
Thanks, Ronan. Appreciate it very much. I feel that I think that this series is so unique in the sense of what they're trying, the ground that they're trying to cover, using the original actors. I don't think that there's any precedent for this in any of the, I think this goes above and beyond certainly above and beyond the impact of the sequel trilogy, in my judgment. I feel that it is yet to be seen. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think I don't think we're going to have the sequel trilogy generation the way we had the Clone Wars generation, the Rebels generation, even the expanded universe generation that we're reading all of the expanded universe books when they were coming out in the 90s. And then, of course, obviously you have the prequel generation. So I think I think this is in some ways it's an opportunity to redeem the way that important legacy characters and those actors are treated and the material that they're given to bring those characters back to life.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you're looking for consistency. And unfortunately, the trend in Hollywood is to take legacy characters, bring them back, and have them kind of down and out, have them just be diminished, and use them almost to make the new characters look better. And that really doesn't work at all. And I don't understand Hollywood's necessity, why they've been doing that so often. But I think the trend is shifting now. And I think that people want to see their heroes being presented in a way in which they were remembered. You can't say, well, it's 30 years have gone by. You're not the same person you were 30 years ago. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not, but I am the same fan I was 30 years ago. So,
right.
I know what I'm a fan of. And when you pull that, switcheroo on me, then I'm going to speak up about it. With Kenobi, I think a lot of people are kind of stung by the way that guys like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker were presented in the sequel trilogy. And they look at Ben and they go, oh, well, he's not strong with the Force anymore. He's disconnected. He's broken. That is a sign of weakness. And it's like, here we go again. They're taking legacy characters and diminishing them for no reason. But this is a part of this character's history that is etched in stone in a profound way. I mean, he's in exile. He's not connected with the Jedi anymore. His saber is his life. Where is it? It's buried in the middle of the desert.
Look, the biggest difference, the people that are comparing this to Luke, as a way to sort of demean Kenobi at this point, I think they're way off. Like the problem with Luke was that was the definitive. They were writing the definitive ending of that character. This is about a moment in time. We know what the fate of the character is. We know what he gives up. We know what he sacrifices. So no matter what they do in this series, they can't take away the moment that we see in Episode 4, A New Hope, and then what we see him do for Luke in 5 and in 6. They can never take that away. What they did with the sequel trilogy is they took away the past by writing the future. Instead of that, you can't take away the future by rewriting the past, which they're doing here with Kenobi. So I think that it's very, very different. The other thing is we're actually seeing this version of Obi-Wan Kenobi in this series do a hell of a lot more than we ever saw sequel trilogy Luke do. All he did was screw around with Rey, make stupid, corny jokes about the Force. He was never serious. He was never substantive in that until the very, very end. And what did he do? He didn't even show up in person. He force projected himself. It was the lamest. I don't want to make...
Yeah, but it got all the slave children talking. That tipped the balance of scales.
Well, another plot point that they just completely forgot about. Yeah. Broom Boy. I remember rooting for Broom Boy after I saw Episode 8, thinking, all right, next, we're going to see the return of Broom Boy and how he's going to ignite the spark that lit the fire that brewed the flames.
Swank, stop it. You're gonna pop a blood vessel in your eye if you continue to talk about this. But I think there's a lot of people are confused. They think that Ben Kenobi has cut himself off from the Force. He really hasn't. He's let his Force abilities atrophy. And I could point to you an obvious truth in Episode 1, the first part of this series, the very first episode. He's trying to communicate with Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yes.
A person who cuts himself off from the Force does not attempt to use the Force in that way. and you see him still trying to do it. Now, obviously, he's tried to move forward with his life, and that's out of sheer survival mode. Why is he telling that one Jedi to go away and just get, his own life? Well, I mean, there's ulterior motives. He tells that Jedi to live a normal life and forget about being a Jedi because, one, he's afraid this guy is going to blow his cover and expose him and expose Luke and everything else. And number two, it's really about survival at this point. These guys are trying to survive. Ben is just trying to survive long enough for Luke to be an adult and get away from the moisture farm. Owen won't let him leave.
Yeah.
This is a real difficult situation Ben is in, and he's still maintaining his faith and he's following the path of the Force, but it's difficult for him. It's very difficult. So he has not cut himself off from the Force, though. I've seen a lot of people saying that. And
there's no evidence to that. None.
No, not when he's trying to communicate with the spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn. Right. So Luke, on the other hand, in The Last Jedi, he cut himself off from the Force totally. And it turned him into an ass, total ass. I don't get that sense with Ben. I feel Ben isn't. He's not a jerk.
Why'd you get so grumpy with your stick? With your stick. Kids love that. Let's go to Patreon and first-time caller Andrew phoning us up from New York. Hello, Andrew. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Hello.
Hey, Jason and Jimmy. Thanks for taking my call. Long-time listener. Excited to talk to you.
Thanks, buddy.
So I got to say, overall, I really liked the series. This episode, I enjoyed it a lot. I think they did a good balance of bringing in action, adding to the story, and just having really good substance. I liked a lot of the flashbacks that they had gone back to Anakin and Obi-Wan dueling. The thing that with Vader is, I think obviously we see him as like a super badass in the original trilogy. And then before that, Anakin is this conflicted, flawed character that has all of this power, but doesn't use it in the right way. And I really like seeing this transition of a suited up Vader having all of this mental conflict and anguish in his head, and how Obi-Wan still lives in his head. And we get insight into that, and it's the building of Vader. And something I'd really like to see, and I don't think we'll get to it with just one episode left, but maybe if they do a season 2, is seeing Vader's relationship with the Emperor and him potentially disappointing him at times and having to continue to prove himself and become that Dark Lord of the Sith that we then see him in the original trilogy. And then one other thing, just real quick, I know I want to get to the point for you guys, is Reva, good character, not my favorite, but I was hoping she was going to die just because I get frustrated with all of these additional characters that get inserted into the stories between movies that show up for a good storyline, but then they disappear. And it's kind of like, well, what happens to them? And I just thought hopefully she'd be a character they'd introduce, she would serve her purpose, and she would die, and we wouldn't have to worry about her being a loose end for trilogies to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, clear her out of the way. So all of our focus will be on Vader and Kenobi for that final episode. What purpose is Reva still serving at this point?
That's a good. That's a good point. Yeah. Thanks for being a Patreon too, Andrew. Appreciate that very much. I like exactly what he's saying. Like you kind of want to clear the dead wood a little bit.
Yeah.
There are characters that are brought out to serve the immediate story, but when you get down, as you mentioned, Jim, to Anakin v. Kenobi, Vader v. Kenobi. You don't want any of that other stuff going on. Like, get out of the way. You're not relevant to this. Stop grabbing on.
Yeah. It becomes more of a distraction than anything, especially characters we've been so invested in for 45 years. How does the inclusion of Reva and her story even compete with that? For our attention, for our affection, and why should we care? She needs to be servicing the story the whole way through.
Yes.
It can't ever be about really her.
No.
And I think they've avoided making it about her. I think she serves the story. If they showed her and she was off having a cup of coffee with the Inquisitors talking about what they're going to do after work and things like that, then I'd start getting really concerned, because that doesn't serve the story. But everything she's done thus far has served the story. I mean, she kidnapped Leia. She orchestrated that. She's bringing Vader and Kenobi together. Or if you ask Ben is bringing Vader to her. But either way, Ben is using Reva, and this is something Vader acknowledged. So he was wise to use.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah, I saw this coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
And I thought that was perfectly acceptable there, because I was hoping that Vader would have smoked her out, that he was letting her use him so he could use her. You're not going to out Vader. I mean, I certainly don't want some upstart character to come in and, drop in for 5 episodes or 6 episodes of a series and outsmart Darth Vader. That doesn't make any sense. We don't want that. That can't happen in this case. When our last caller was talking about the idea of seeing Vader's relationship with Palpatine and all that, and could we see that with a second season of Kenobi? I think that's more likely to play out in a Vader series, and I think it's perfectly possible that we could see a Vader series. I really would like to see more of that, but I don't want to see him being the whipped puppy. I don't want to, Jim, when we were coming into this series, you were pretty adamant about not wanting to see Vader sitting in his meditation chamber looking at pictures of Padme crying, none of that. And you have not,
didn't get any of that.
Yeah, you don't want that. And you haven't gotten that. This is, yes, has he been thinking about his past? Certainly. But he hasn't been sitting there, moaning and crying and wailing over his lost love. It's been about how am I going to prove myself against this master that I've been trying to topple.
I want him fueled by fear. I don't want him fueled by loss or a broken heart.
Right.
I mean, obviously those are all components of Anakin as we know him, and then he turns into Vader. But I think Vader is primarily fueled by fear. He's afraid of the Emperor. He's afraid of going through anything that diminishes his connection to the dark side of the Force. That's why he leans on it so much. That's why he completely abandons his persona as Anakin Skywalker. So yeah, I don't want to see that. I definitely don't want to see that. And I do predict that Reva will not survive this season of Clone Wars. I think all the talk of a spin-off series for her is just a joke. I think people are getting trolled on the internet constantly when it comes to information about this show and what's going on with streaming series with Star Wars. I don't see Reva surviving at all. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying, what do I know? Who's seen episode 6 yet? I don't know. But I did predict she was going to actually learn of the location of Luke Skywalker, and that could be her last stand. I think I said something about that last week, but
we'll have to review the tape.
Yeah, we'll see how all that goes.
FJ's been lighting up the text messages today, talking about, hey, wait a minute, guys. I'm a prophet. I called the fact that Reva was that little girl from the Jedi Temple, and we asked the judges here, the official prophet or loser judges, and the judges came back to us and they said, I don't know if that counts, because that was bandied about a few times on after shows, leading up to FJ's appearance. So there's kind of a prior theory surrounding that, and more savvy-eyed viewers caught that it was pretty obvious that there was a young, African American girl that was in that sequence. So anyway, FJ, if we got it, do we have to give it to FJ? Is he at that point where we have to give it to him?
Well, I do, because I kind of was the one who was like, well, it's not exclusively Prophet FJ, because Swank had a screen grab that he brightened up, and I think he brought it up on a prior after show. And I was like, why'd I do that? Why do I want to take the win?
Okay, all right, let's do it, because I wrote down, I've got it right here. These
Oh,
are
good.
all
He
of,
said
these are,
Jason wrote it down.
yeah, these are
So
all the
we're-
profit or loser, so you can pause
Got
that.
him.
These are all the profit or loser notes that I have. And I do have two that FJ claimed. Reva, as the kid in the beginning, will be revealed. Okay?
Yes, yes.
Profit.
Which we claim was low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. But you know FJ.
Yeah.
FJ can take the ribbing. That's what I love. And Reva turns face. I used a wrestling term there. Reva turns face.
Right.
I don't know. I'm kind of giving that a 50-50. I wouldn't say that she turned face. Would you? She certainly wasn't helping anyone but herself.
Her angst toward Kenobi has been revealed. What is the source? What is the motivation of her, what has appeared to be obvious hatred of Ben Kenobi? What is that? She feels like he abandoned them. He didn't do enough to stop Anakin Skywalker because he secretly does not want to see Anakin killed. That's her conclusion. She flat out asked him, do you even want him to be killed? Do you even want him to die? And then that's when she laid the guilt bomb on.
Yes.
And he didn't deny.
I am so glad you brought that up. Do you want him? Dude, that line, I wish I'd have written it down. That gave me goosebumps when I heard her say that. She's like, do you really want him to die? Do you want him dead? And I was waiting for that second beat, but obviously she would never know. Like you had the chance before and you didn't. You didn't take it. You could have killed him before. Are you going to do it again? Are you going to screw us? Are you going to screw the galaxy again and let him walk away? Not walk away, but let him live. That was heavy. I thought that was one of the heavier comments. That was up there with like you trained his father. We heard that in that first episode with Owen. That was a good one.
Well, it's a big guilt bomb she drops on him.
Yes.
And
she's holding up the mirror to his face.
And so we have to get to a point where Kenobi has to shed his compassion, which obviously still exists for Anakin Skywalker. He's got to shed. He's got to shed, not shred. He's got to shed the compassion. And he has to get to a point where he is in Return of the Jedi when he appears to Luke as a force spirit on Dagobah and says, you have to kill Darth Vader. You have to kill your father. We have to get there. Now, is this just like a Ben Kenobi trademark where he has other people get their hands dirty and he just watches Vader said to Reva, he was wise to use you against me. And
yes.
Ben Kenobi then doing the same thing with Luke Skywalker in the original trilogy? Ben obviously couldn't kill Vader. He left him to die there on the lava shores of Mustafar. He couldn't do the dirty deed himself.
Yeah.
He wants Lava to do it. He wants Reva to do it. He wants Luke to do it. So
keep in mind too, Jim, that Vader brings up Kenobi incessantly to Luke in the original trilogy. Obi-Wan has taught you well. Obi-Wan once thought as you do. I mean, it's almost like in his dueling with Luke in the original trilogy, it's like he's seeing Luke as a proxy almost for Obi-Wan. There's no mention of Yoda. There's no mention, obviously, of the Jedi Order or anything like that. So this feud that Vader has with Obi-Wan is bottomless, and even when he's fighting his own son. So it's cool stuff. A lot of callers, man. You guys are really coming in. This is one of the most active, certainly interactive shows we've done so far. So thank you all very much. Here's Chris. He says, do you guys think we'll get this all resolved, or will they leave the door open for future Ewan appearances? Thanks for the wonderful entertainment. Oh, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Thank you for participating. This wouldn't be wonderful if it wasn't for your engagement in the conversation. So Ewan in additional shows, media coming out for Star Wars. I think Ewan will show up. Okay, let me put it this way. if there was a Vader series starring Hayden Christensen and co-starring Ian McDiarmid or something like that, would a Ewan McGregor say, yeah, I'll show up and shoot a cameo or, shoot an episode or moments for an episode? Yeah, I think he absolutely would. I don't think he comes cheap, and I don't think that he's going to do just any Star Wars spin-off or series, but I think he's definitely game to do more Obi-Wan stuff. And I think if they, say, hey, this is a chance for you and Hayden to work together, or maybe you and Ian McDiarmid or somebody to work together, I think he'd be back on it.
Well, he definitely has taken huge ownership of the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, he was so impressive every time he was on stage at Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim, just for his devotion to the character. I mean, he's really come back around. I know that Ewan McGregor was happy to be free of Star Wars after they finished shooting Revenge of the Sith. He was happy to be free, and now it's become such a part of his career in his life that I think he's really seeing the value in it. And of course, the way the fan base has come around to the prequels too, which
Right.
I love seeing. And that kind of passion for the prequels is something that really fuels my my love of this particular streaming series, this Obi-Wan Kenobi streaming series. It's just, we're back, man. We're back there. We're back with Ewan McGregor. We're back in that galaxy again. We're in the universe. It's just so nice to be back. And during the best moments of the prequel era, that I was saying that, thinking about the original trilogy. Now I'm watching a streaming series thinking about the prequel trilogy. I mean,
Right.
what a long, strange trip it's been. But I've been there for 45 years, and I'm having a great time with this Kenobi series. And so it's just sort of funny how the way things have kind of come full circle in that regard. And it's just, to me, it's a pleasure to be seeing Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan Kenobi again. I mean, just to see him back in that role, for me, has been such the highlight of this series, So, I don't want to gush too much, you guys, and I understand a lot of the criticisms out there. There are things I'd rather have seen myself, and there's like a, some sort of switch I wish I could flip, because I have a little list here of things that I really want to see before this series concludes.
One episode left.
Number one, Spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn. Okay, I can see why they'd hold that off till the end, because that's a real strong indication of how far Ben Kenobi has come through this series alone. He begins the series unable to communicate with Qui-Gon. He ends the series able to communicate with Qui-Gon. If that does not happen, this is a missed opportunity. And I, like I said, some of those wounds are still open for me going back to the sequel trilogy. I think Ben needs to learn about the existence of the Death Star. That's no moon. That's a space station. Give that line a little bit more weight, so he's not just guessing. I want to see a conversation between Anakin and Ben, Vader and Kenobi. I want to see that. I want to see them try to find some sort of resolution between two men, not just fueled between light and dark. I want character stuff here. I want to see personalities clashing. I want to learn how Reva became the Inquisitor. It has to be more than we just found you in the gutter.
Well, how about how the Grand Inquisitor came back?
Yeah, well, that's on the list.
Oh, it's on the list. Okay.
Yeah, that is on the list.
Somehow, the Grand Inquisitor has returned.
How did he suddenly return?
Right.
His famous line at the end of Rebels, which I watched that last episode. I think it's called Fire Across the Galaxy. It was the season 1 finale of Rebels. I watched it today. And the Inquisitor's last word to Kanan Jarrus before he sort of lets go and falls to his death, and his last line is, sometimes there's a fate worse than death.
Yes.
I was like, wow, what does he mean by that? Like, he doesn't want to go back in front of Darth Vader and say, I lost. Or is he referencing dying at Reva's blade going through him? I mean, maybe he, I don't know. I want to see Luke get that model T-16. I want to see. Here's a weird one.
It's like
Nobody's
Jimmy's
talked about.
Christmas list. You're sitting on. Whose lap are you sitting on? Is this Deborah Chow's lap?
I'm sitting on Kyle Newman's lap in the back of a small economy rental in Orlando, circa 2010. That was Swank, by the way, and they were both wearing shorts, and it was very humid out. When Jason got up off of Kyle's lap, there was a loud ripping sound. Yeah. Okay. I want to see. Here's a very specific one.
Okay.
I want to see Ben use Anakin's saber. He has both his saber and Anakin's. Did he take it with him off Tatooine? I don't know. I don't know.
He only gave Raja one saber.
Right,
Haja,
right.
Sorry, Haja. He only gave him one, so I'm thinking he didn't take it with him. I think it's still in the cave.
I want to see the Emperor. I want to see Vader go in front of the Emperor, and Emperor scolding him for losing Kenobi. But that is if the Emperor actually gives a damn about Kenobi being out there or not. Like I said, this is a very personal thing for Vader. I think maybe even Palpatine would sort of take a twisted pleasure at knowing Vader was being tormented by acknowledgement of the existence of his former master. I think that Palpatine would be down with that whole idea. Oh, let's see how this plays out. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It'd be like us watching Disney Plus every Wednesday.
He's watching the show with the rest of us.
Yeah. And one thing I've always wanted to see, and I wanted to see this in the prequels, is I want to see Ewan McGregor walk into the Mos Eisley Cantina. I want that line when he says, "This place could be a little rough." I want him to have some background with getting in brawls there and stuff,
That could be fodder for a season 2. I wouldn't mind seeing season 2 keep, I know people say like, well, it shrinks the universe, it kind of limits the storytelling, but I wouldn't mind seeing season 2 where Obi-Wan is on Tatooine and you see him maybe with something local. I think that'd be
right,
fun.
like the John Jackson Miller book,
right?
The Kenobi book he wrote, and I really like that book a lot. Ewan McGregor revealed in some media interviews he was doing that he did read that book.
Oh, really?
While they, he's like it's a different. He goes, it's a totally different story than what we're doing, but he said I really liked it, and so I know John Jackson Miller was on a high from that.
I'm sure.
And and it's a good book. It's worth checking out.
It's Legends now. I think it was one of the very last books to be published before they made that switch. It was right at the end.
It's all Legends to me, Right. I mean, what is canon? What are these stories?
But what is canon? What is canon? All right, we got a Patreon on the line. We got Antonio. He's joining us. Hello, Antonio. Hello, Antonio. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Chat.
Chat, boys.
Hey, buddy.
Real quick. I know there's been a lot of talk about Reva.
Yes.
For me, Reva is a really interesting character because she resembles a lot of other stories that we've seen before, whether that is going back to Revan in KOTOR or even the newest, I don't remember her name, the sister that was the Inquisitor in the Jedi Fallen Order. Seems like we're really interested in how fallen Padawan or younglings deal with the fact that their heroes don't live up to what they want them to be. Seems very similar to, my fandom. Yeah, I won't go into The Last Jedi too much.
Okay.
But that being said, right, there's like a very interesting point there where what I love about Reva, particularly for me, and everyone can have their own disagreements with it, but what I like about Reva is she's not good or bad. FJ said last week he'd be really disappointed if she had a redemption arc, where all of a sudden she became good. I agree with that. I would hate that. What I actually like about Reva is she's chaotic, right? Like the spectrum of 9 angry men from good to evil, law to lawless, chaotic in the middle. You have Reva, who is this. She's not good. She's not bad. She's just angry.
Yeah.
And she is just mad, and she just wants to destroy everything in front of her. And we've seen that before. And I think that's a really interesting story to develop. though maybe it hasn't developed as well as I wanted it to in this very limited 6-series story. But, I'd just love to hear you guys' thoughts on that little aspect, right? Where not good, not bad, but
not good, bad, not bad, but something in between. Well, thanks, Antonio. Appreciate it, and always appreciate your support on Patreon. So, when he talks about not good, not bad, not Jedi, not Sith, I think about Ahsoka, for example. She says, "I'm no Jedi," and so yeah, these Force sensitives, some that have been trained to some extent, like Ahsoka, to a greater extent, certainly than Reva, but the fact that she is, doesn't identify, or likely doesn't identify as, a Jedi any longer, and not a Sith. She wants to tackle, overtake the Dark Lord, Darth Vader. Yeah, I think that it's an interesting area to explore when they don't, when they're not on one side versus the other. They're on their own side, yet they have, Force abilities and Force powers. And we're kind of conditioned as Star Wars fans to think about light side, dark side, nothing in between, but we're seeing these shades of gray.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm really enjoying about this series is it's much more personal. It's not all about those big themes,
Mm-hmm.
It's very character driven. It's not about the rise of an oppressive empire or, like you said, Jason, dark side versus light side. It's all very, very personal for these characters. And
yes,
I think sometimes that the writing can get held back by these boundaries that are placed around characters where, because, dark side, evil, light side, good, these are very strict boundaries that are being created. So make the events in the story become so personal that the big picture doesn't really matter anymore. And it all comes down to Anakin and Kenobi. And I think that's the most important thing about the original trilogy is the original trilogy isn't about the extermination of the Empire. It's not about the rise of the Jedi. It's not about the destruction of the dark side. It's not about the death of the Emperor. It's about a son redeeming his father. And that is the big picture when you think of the original trilogy. A lot of people say that Palpatine's return in episode 9 completely unravels everything that was achieved in the original trilogy. That's wrong. Palpatine can survive 1,000 times. It doesn't matter. The original trilogy was about Luke redeeming Vader.
Yeah.
It was about a family. And that's what it's all about. So
and George says
Star Wars is about character moments shouldn't be diminished for the sake of the grand mythology of Star Wars. At the end of the day, it comes down to characters. The thing that made the original trilogy so successful, along with groundbreaking special effects, was the chemistry between the actors and their characters. It was about us seeing ourselves in Luke Skywalker, wanting to go out and find our full potential and stuff. That's what Star Wars is all about. All this other stuff is just Wikipedia fodder. That's all it is. And I love the grand mythology stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. I sink my teeth into it all the time and love it. But the core of Star Wars existence is character moments and connection to faith. That's what it really is all about. And when that stuff gets left out, we notice.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We got a lot of super chats. Thank you guys so much. This is from Cameron. He says, awesome episode. Loved every minute. I finally got emotional during this one. Vader's power on full display. I have more appreciation for Reva's character now. I think a lot of people will come away from this episode having more appreciation. You just got to get on here. All right. Down from Fart Party. Thank you, Fart Party.
He's a friend of ours.
Appreciate it.
He's a friend of ours. I know who Fart Party is.
Here's Jeff. He says, can we talk Grand Inquisitor? Filoni canon holds. That's right. We had, who was that was in the interview saying, hey, don't worry about the Grand Inquisitor. We're not going to.
That was Joby Harold.
Yeah, Joby.
Joby Harold was saying, all this stuff is, he's just like, I can't address this stuff until the whole story plays out.
Yeah, don't worry.
And I've
about
also heard reiterations from guys like him and other insiders that this is designed to be a standalone 6-part story without any sort of acknowledgement of what could happen after it, like a post-credit sequence with Darth Maul or something like that. And there's even been like wild rumors on the internet that the finale has been re-edited to make room for a second season. I've yet to find any evidence of that. And I've only heard creatives reiterate that this is designed to stand alone. So
yeah,
I don't know where that stuff is coming from. Obviously, we'll know more next week. But
hey, by the way, did you see the news that some of the movie theater companies are going to be, or at least one is going to be playing all of these in the cinema, so you can sit there for 5.5 hours and watch this entire series on the big screen. I got to say, if it was coming local to me, I would go. I was looking online to see if there was anything close to me. I haven't seen anything yet, but
it appears to be a Canadian promotion only.
Oh,
followed by a Q&A with no indication of who is going to be involved in the Q&A, where the Q&A is going to be conducted.
Well, it's going to be Hayden. He's the Canadian up there.
Oh, well,
I would think
you may have a point there.
They can get him off his tractor.
We'll be doing the after show next week, though.
Yes, we will.
You won't be sitting in the movie theaters.
But as we were talking about, following the action and whatnot, I'm really, this is the first time, even more so than Mandalorian, that I'm really looking forward to going back and rewatching these, 1 through 6. Boom, 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 boom.
I've really been wanting to watch with Wendy. My whole family has been really wrapped up in the Kenobi, and we have lots of discussions about it on Wednesday. But everyone is watching it individually. My son Dylan stays up to catch the 2 a.m. drop. I'm up first thing in the morning watching it, and then my other son Michael, he watches it on his own. As a matter of fact, he was watching it this afternoon, and I went to sit down and watch it with him. He paused it. He's like, no, I can't have anybody in the room with me. No. So I left. And then Wendy, of course, she hasn't seen a single episode, and I think she's really going to love this series. And so we've been wanting to sit down and binge with her, and we just haven't been able to. She's been really busy lately. So she told me she was going to catch up with it on her own.
Oh,
so I hope that happens soon. I hope it happens before the season finale, because I'd love to be able to watch that together with the family. But everyone's just been on their own for this ride, and that's good, because it's weird. We've all been watching it separately, but it seems like out of all the streaming series thus far, this is the one we're talking about the most around the house. Yep. So.
Here's Garrett Hills. He says, watching and working. So sad Tala is gone. Teared up a lot at that. Do you think that Order 66 is getting oversaturated? Though we all love it whenever we see it again. Loving this show. Hashtag just enjoy Star Wars. Thanks, Garrett. It's funny that you say, are we getting too much Order 66? I remember we didn't get any Order 66 after episode 3. No, I want to know more about it. I don't think it's oversaturated. It's a huge moment in Star Wars history. Huge moment. One of the biggest. It's up there with Battle of Yavin.
Goes back to that first conversation between Ben and Luke. The Empire, Darth Vader helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. I didn't think it happened overnight. No. And the dark times between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy was always something that publishing kept at arm's length. George Lucas wouldn't let anybody write any stories in that era. He wanted to do a TV show based in that era called Star Wars Underworld, which never got up off the ground and stuff. So this has been an elusive era of Star Wars for the longest time, even though we know how it begins and how it ends. There's fertile ground in that 20-year time span between the two trilogies. And I'm just like, jumping out of my skin to see a series like Kenobi take that era and treat it seriously too.
Yeah.
And that's what I sign up for as a Star Wars fan, quite honestly.
Here's Fred O'Connor with, I don't know, what is that? 10 pounds? I don't know what the hell that is. It's 10 something. Thanks, Fred. Appreciate it. I don't know what that denomination is, but we do appreciate it. It's 10 something. Here's Emma. She says, what do you think if they showed Darth Vader having a vision of him and Padme? I think that would be amazing. Yeah, I think, I went on record saying, I think it's definite that we're going to see a Natalie Portman cameo in this series. I think we're definitely going to see her. Why wouldn't we see her? She's out there in L.A. and blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to. I would love it. I think what the point we were making is it's not that we don't want any acknowledgement from Vader, but there have been these famous artist renditions of Vader sitting there with his head in his hands in one hand and then holding up a hologram of Padme.
Or the thought bubble.
Yeah.
The thought bubble, and she's like surrounded by flowers and stuff.
Yeah.
Really,
we don't want to see that. Now, clearly, if Kenobi is floating around in his head rent-free, we know that Padme is as well. So we're not numb to that idea. It's just we don't want to see the dwelling. We didn't want to see.
I don't want to see the heartbreak. I don't mind seeing him tormented by his decisions. I don't mind to see him reminded of the things that have pushed him into a cyborg lifestyle. But I don't want to see him showing regret. I don't want to see him shedding tears. I just, that kind of stuff doesn't line up with the Darth Vader that I've always kind of had in my head canon. And I got to tell you, the Kenobi series is giving me that Darth Vader that I've always had in my head canon. I was a little confused when Third Sister revealed she knew Anakin Skywalker was Darth Vader. We got a lot of people in fandom talking about how common the knowledge was that Darth Vader was Anakin Skywalker. But I've always maintained that Vader kept all of that stuff a mystery. And it seems like that was validated in the dialogue in this episode. So I'm really happy to see that mystery being maintained.
Yeah. Here's this is Natty BHTX. The negotiator returns. Thanks for all the great commentary. Yeah, I thought about that, where he wanted to sort of parlay with Reva there to stall. But, well, the idea was that it was a stall tactic, but he also wanted to know if his suspicions were, what could be confirmed. That the only way she would know what she knew when she knew it was if she was actually there. And, could he turn her or, get her on his side? Our buddy Rich Brendel says, happy birthday to Tyler Page yesterday. Oh my gosh, there he is, the birthday boy, one day belated. Happy birthday, Tyler.
Thanks. Yeah. So it was a good one.
We celebrated on the Babu Freaks, episode
good.
22, fresh on Patreon. It's there, and Tyler's here. And hey, so can we get a couple sentences out of you about what you thought of this episode and what you want to see coming?
Yeah, birthday boy.
Yeah. I mean, it's always hard to get a couple sentences out of me, but like you said, I want to see Qui-Gon really badly on the next episode, and I do want to see Bonnie Peace. I think we're gonna get Bonnie, and then I watched this at 2 a.m. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, right from the get-go. And as a prequel fan, watching that battle play out in the moral of the story, where he's like, you're too focused on winning. You're too focused on. For me, I equated that with being right. And I think that just really speaks volumes when you're thinking about everything as social media reaction to the show. And I just can't wait to see more. And episode 6 is right around the corner, so hopefully it delivers.
One thing I wanted to acknowledge on my list of things I want to see, I do want to see that conversation between Anakin and or Vader and Kenobi. I want to see them kind of talk it out a little bit, right? But I want there to be a point where Ben actually senses the light in Vader. Tries to convince him, no, you can leave the dark side behind. Come with me.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
That's exactly why. That's why I want that. For that line in Return of the Jedi. Obi-Wan once thought as you did. I mean, where does that even come from? We need to have some basis for that, a foundation for that line. Why does Vader believe that? So I want to see Ben plead with Vader almost. Anakin! You're the chosen one! Brothers, Anakin! Brothers!
Well, I hope you had a great birthday, Tyler.
When you were underage, Anakin!
All right.
All right.
We got
enough.
Tyler, we'll check in with you here at the end of the show. We want to get through some more of these super chats. Our buddy, Rich, thanks for reminding us that it was Tyler's birthday yesterday. Scott, thanks so much for saying this. Just thank you. We appreciate that, dude. Thank you. It seems like you're taking this show in the spirit in which it is intended. Pistol Pete says, can't make the live chat, have to avoid the spoilers. Pistol Pete, not in this episode, not in this after show, I'll tell you that. That's okay, Pistol. We'll catch you next time. We really do. We're going to really have a great after show, I think, next week for episode 6, part 6. A lot of times I'm watching the clock here, but, I'm not saying we're going to go, all night long, but what I'm saying is we're going to try to get through everybody. We're going to let you get your thoughts out on this series. And we want to hear from, legit. We're not here to argue, be argumentative, be confrontational, but let's hash it out. If you think that this show is way off base, we want to hear from you. I see a lot of people very animated in the chat, not so animated on the calls. All right, I'm just saying. Again, not trying to be confrontational, but let's talk it through. If you think this is way off base, here's Jake. He says, "Do you think Reva wants to kill Luke to get revenge on Anakin since she can't beat him herself?" I don't think that we're going to see anyone outside of clearly Yoda and Yoda, Ben, and Bail know the origin of the twins. I don't think anyone is going to put that together. I think that would really overturn it all. No one can know who Luke is and what his or Leia, what their relationship is to Vader, I think, outside of those three until Vader realizes it. Even Palpatine doesn't know about Leia.
I don't think Palpatine even knows about Luke until The Empire Strikes Back.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact,
I think Vader knew. Vader knew.
Vader started getting the feels during the Battle of Yavin. The Force is strong with this one.
Yeah. Vader knew, and he kept that from Palpatine.
Yes.
Because he knew Palpatine would use that against him.
And it wasn't until Empire Strikes Back where Palpatine started letting Vader know that he knew that there was another Skywalker out there and he must not become a Jedi. And then the way it's interpreted, I think, in the novelization and certainly in the Shadows of the Empire, is that when that Vader is trying to sort of stall Palpatine by saying, well, if he could be turned, he'd be a powerful ally.
Yes.
And then Palpatine, yes, can it be done? And I think that's Vader trying to give Luke a little space so that he, because up to that point, it's like all Palpatine wants to do is squash Luke so he doesn't represent any threat. Yeah. Well, Vader wants to feel this out. What do I have here? So he says to Palpatine, wow, let me see what I can do. Maybe I can turn him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've known this. I've always known this.
Somehow I've always known.
But no, it is. I am with you. I think he was buying time at that point and trying to keep Palpatine from completely exterminating Luke before Vader has an opportunity to really connect with him and reveal his plan, which he did reveal to Luke in Empire Strikes Back. The two of them were going to team up and destroy Palpatine.
Yes. Yep.
So that's a main reason why he didn't want the Emperor to know about Luke's even his existence. But by that point, I mean, it was too late anyway. I mean, Palpatine had already known. They had that holographic conversation where Vader took the knee.
Yes.
That's what Palpatine revealed, that, the son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi. And Vader was all like,
here's a question for you. When, in the special edition, when we see, or the, I shouldn't say special edition, the Blu-ray, when we hear the re-edited version, or was it a special edition when they didn't edit? They didn't bring Ian McDiarmid in until the Blu-ray, right?
Not until the Blu-ray.
The Blu-ray.
You're correct. Because it was after Revenge of the Sith. That's when Lucas shot Palpatine, Ian McDiarmid.
Yes.
With the intention of putting him in. It was the 2011.
Because there's a line in that dialogue there on the Executor where he says, I have no doubt that he is the son of Skywalker, something like that. And he says, how is this possible? Mm-hmm. I always took that as Vader, like, trying to throw him off the set, like he's playing dumb.
Yeah.
Like, oh, really? I don't know. How'd that happen?
Right.
Because he's like, oh, shoot, he's on me, and I'm trying to work this out and make this happen. But yeah,
and no one knows about Leia.
Possible? Yeah,
no one knows about Leia until Ben reveals it. The spirit of Ben reveals it to Luke on Dagobah. But then Luke betrays himself and allows Vader to get into his head and discover sister. And that is the moment when Vader learns of Leia. But does Vader know it is Leia, or it's just a sister? That's something that I think has never been resolved, really.
No.
I don't think Vader realizes that it was Leia under his nose the whole time.
Right.
That was his actual daughter. He just knows there's a daughter. Sister.
I like that. I like that he doesn't know it down to the individual level. He just knows that there's another. And that she's still alive as well. Here's Nathan Mullins.
Right, so this is what this Kenobi show is doing. Let me just point this out right now. Let me just freeze this moment in time, because this is what the Kenobi show is doing. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. We're going back now to previous Star Wars stories and reconsidering moments of dialogue, reconsidering character interaction, and adding significant new weight to it. And that's one of the things I love the most about Star Wars, is when it can do things like that, when we can look at the previous material with fresh eyes,
right,
and provide a different sense of analysis. That's how I know they're getting close to the core of what Star Wars really is.
Yeah.
Is when it initiates this sort of reaction from us.
We're watching the show, as a family, and it's all done, and we're like, whoo, what an episode. And my wife goes, it was really good, but we know what happens. And I said, yes, we do know eventually the fate of most of these characters, but it changes the way we interpret and watch the things that we've loved and grown up with and lived with all these years. And that's what I feel. That's one of the major ways that I measure whether or not this stuff is actually significant, is does it change the way I feel about the existing films that I've grown up with and known all my life? If it does, then it sort of racks up the ladder for me a little bit in terms of significance and all of that.
Yeah. And these changes to the kind of, I just want to point out, Ty brought it up on the chat. He thinks the Ian McDiarmid drop happened on the Blu-ray, not the Blu-ray, the DVD, which came out in 2004. That seems to sync up a little bit better with my memory.
Yeah, I think that. He's right about that. Yeah,
by the time the Blu-ray rolled around in 2011, that's when we were seeing tweaks like Sebulba walking around in Jabba's palace and the weird rocks in front of R2 in the cave. The giant Jabba door.
You know what I most remember about the Blu-ray? I was actually thinking about this today. I was living in the old house, and we were redoing the studio area in the basement, and I was doing all of the shows from the garage. Do you remember that?
I remember that, and the nighttime crickets that accompanied you.
The nighttime crickets. If you go back to those shows, when we were talking about the Blu-ray release, Go back to rebelforceradio.com and listen to some of those. And and you'll hear the crickets. I'm in the garage. And I was thinking,
I remember once some solicitors for a local religious organization, like the Jehovah's Witnesses or something, came and paid you a visit.
They did indeed.
During the show.
They're
handing you pamphlets while we're talking about the Zillow beast or something.
It was great. Riva could also think the kid is Obi-Wan's. This is from Eric TV.
Oh,
Super
yes.
Chat. Interesting. Okay.
That's an interesting twist. That whole certain point of view thing coming into play. I like that.
She's trying to get back at Obi-Wan. That again, going back to that whole scene. Where were you?
Yeah.
That was heavy. Nathan Mullins says, love the show. Roken tells Obi-Wan that the ship's hyperdrive is down and that they're behind us. Are we going to see the Devastator pursuing the princess on a cruiser ship again? May the force be with you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, maybe it'll suck it into the bottom part of the Star Destroyer. And then that's when Vader has Ben on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, and they're really starting to have their psychological discussion about where they were, where they are now, all that stuff. And that's when Vader does a drive-by of the Death Star and says, why do you even bother? Look at what we're doing. The galaxy is screwed, pal. You can't do anything to fix it. Your mistakes have led to this, the Death Star. And then Ben will be like, that's no moon. That's a space station. And Vader said, hold on to that line. You're going to need it. I feel a tremor in the force.
You're going to need it.
For
Peter Bessier, one of our favorites here. Always. Beiser,
remember,
sorry.
Nobody's nicer than Peter Beiser.
No one's nicer than Peter Beiser, and he is a nice guy, and he does such a great job with everyone on the chat. He says, if this show doesn't take you back to when you were a kid and give you a warm injection of nostalgia, it's time to move on. No harm, no foul. May the force be with you. Okay. All right, Peter. Your point of view. We always love the way you navigate all of the various opinions in the chat. You are a gentleman, that's for sure. I do want to grab a couple of calls. We're going a little bit long, but I want to make sure we get to our Patreons here. And we got our buddy Eric. He's calling in all the way from Phoenix. Eric from Phoenix wants to get his 2 cents in here on part 5 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Hello.
Hey, guys. I'm actually on vacation this week, a little closer to Mac in Iowa. So
You're in Iowa?
A different spot this week, yeah.
Who the hell vacations in Iowa? You have family there, I hope?
Good question. Yeah, we do. Okay. But, hey, I got three quick things that nobody's talked about.
Oh, good.
Number one, a little nitpick, but can we just stop with letting humans use the Wookiee bowcasters?
Wait a second.
I don't remember which character.
Yeah, that was Roken. Now, what's wrong with that? I mean, Han used it once in episode.
I know. I didn't
7.
like it when Han used it. I didn't like it when Han used it in The Force Awakens, and this is going back. I'm going back to the EU days, and I don't remember which book talked about it. That only Wookiees could do it because of their strength. They're the only ones that were strong enough to pull back the bolt, and so that just stuck with me, and I really liked it because it made the Wookiees unique and special, and it made the weapon special. So it's a nitpick.
Okay.
And so that's a nitpick for me.
We'll accept it as a nitpick.
No, I'm Team Eric on this. I'm with you on that because I read the same crap you read.
Yeah.
And the Wookiee bowcaster was specifically designed for the strength of a Wookiee to use, not Ice Cube's son. So that's how I.
That is correct. That is correct. And or Han Solo. I said it out loud. I said it. Or Han Solo. Number two. I liked the little nod to the prequels. They had Ned the droid using a battle droid pistol. I really liked that. I thought that was cool. So I thought that was a nice touch that they had him do that. It's not a big deal, but it's just a little thing I noticed. and I really like that nod. Him being a droid, using a battle droid gun, and then major props to finally throwing in some original trilogy aliens. We got a Trandoshan family, and then I think it was a Nikto. I can never remember. I think it was a Nikto that was in there. So outside of the Jawas, I think those are the only two other original trilogy aliens that we've seen in this series. And, to me, you don't have to have them in every episode. You don't have to have them full of original trilogy aliens. But to me, it always works best in Star Wars when you've got them smattered around a little bit.
Absolutely.
Just let you know you're in the same universe. So I thought that was a good call out.
No, you're right. That's the atmosphere. The show has seemed extremely reluctant to show us any sort of diversity among alien species anywhere. I mean, you look at all of these people who are hiding out, following the path. They're all in that cave. We maybe one or two alien species in there.
They're all very human looking.
Yeah, and same thing with Anchorhead. Earlier in the series, when we were on Anchorhead, we didn't really see that many alien species as well. And that's really part of the whole flavor of the Star Wars universe, and I don't understand the reluctance to show these, give me some Greedos and Hammerheads. I always take it back to the old Mos Eisley Cantina, and that's where it all began as far as the diversity of alien species in Star Wars. So bring it back. I'm with you, Eric, in Phoenix. It sounds like you had a little bit more to add.
Nope, that was it. Just those three things. And the last thing I would just say, guys, just really appreciate doing these live streams. I haven't been able to join many this season, but the chat has been great tonight. Just a lot of great people in there. Jeff Holland, Peter Beiser, a ton of other people. Pistol Pete did jump back in after he watched the episode. But just appreciate everything you guys do and how much fun that you two have, which is contagious for all the rest of us, whether we're watching or in the chat. So just tip of the hat. Thanks, guys. Appreciate taking my call.
Oh, thanks, Eric.
Right
and
thanks,
enjoy
Eric.
the vacation, you and the missus there. Man, I tell you what, we've still got a whole switchboard full, and we've got we got through all the super chats. That's good, because we got to wrap it up. But definitely want to shout out to Tyler Page, birthday boy, belated birthday boy. But thank you so much for your help this week and every week here on the old after show.
Yeah,
sorry we didn't.
Me, guys.
Of course, sorry we didn't get to everybody. I know we had some more that we wanted to get to on the switchboard, but we'll be back next week with a look at part 6. And all right, who's with the last minute super chat here? I see what you're doing, Sean. Loved how Vader was basically saying Reva wasn't worthy of him igniting his own lightsaber. Such a killer taunt. It was totally a gangster kind of move. I'm not even going to bother pulling my lightsaber out. In fact, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab yours. I'm going to break it in half. I'll give you part. I'll give me part, and let's see what happens.
That was a badass move. He just throws the saber onto the ground. Like, okay, let's go. Come on, what do you got? I loved it.
Yeah.
Speaking
of what you got, what do you got, Mac?
What do
Final
I got?
thoughts?
Final thoughts. Well, I didn't take too many notes on this episode, and I already talked about all the things I really want to see in the finale. That pretty much covers it for me. I can't believe how much fun this episode has been, and how much fun Wednesdays have been. I'm so excited for the next episode. I'm going to be really disappointed when next Wednesday comes and goes. I'm going to be relieved because I think a lot of our answers are going to be provided to us. All the questions we've had this season, all the angst I've seen for the fan base on social media, many who are jumping to conclusions about this story before the story is fully fleshed out. And I think we'll be ready to hear what everyone thinks after that final season, whether you want to heap praise on it or you want to crap all over it. I mean, that's really when a lot of our opinions will will really matter. I love all the speculation between episodes, though. That's one of the most fun things for me as a Star Wars fan, is the downtime between episodes. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was 3 years between films. And we did little things like read Marvel comics and newspaper strips to kind of, fill our Jones. But really, it was the speculation about the next movie coming up that fueled my fandom for decades. And now to be able to do this on a weekly basis, it's a lot of fun. It really is. And I'm going to miss it when it's gone. Looking forward to Andor starting up at the end of the summer and all of these streaming series. It's just, this is a real, glorious time to be a Star Wars fan. And I'm soaking it up and really loving it. So that's all I have to say about this episode that hasn't been said yet before. I'm sure I'll think of 1,000 things as soon as the microphones get turned off. But, hey, we got Rebel Force up this week. Me and Jason will be back with the weekly RFR. We got some fun surprises. We'll be talking Kenobi. We'll be talking Star Wars Celebration. We'll be talking all things Star Wars. So watch that show to drop this week. And then next week we'll be back with another after show. And I'm sure that'll be as long as it takes, because we'll have a lot to unwrap. One thing that never gets unwrapped is Kitster. He's not in this episode. Oh, by the way, everyone, I have seen Kitster, the adult Kitster and Wald in the latest episode of latest issue of the Star Wars comic from Marvel. Yeah, it was fine. Whatever.
Was Kitster in the?
Yeah,
Kitster was in the
Vader
comic.
reunites with adult Kitster and
Wald. All right. Well, we got to break it down on the RFR this week. Okay, so bring the panels. All right. We got to chat it through.
We'll break down the emotional impact, but for this episode, Kitster not in it.
Not in it. All right. Well, there is talk here of from Radio Times. Obi-Wan Kenobi stars and director on season 2 hopes there are more stories. So it's heating up, guys.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
I think it's gonna happen. Absolutely, We'll see. Season 2 of Kenobi. Great to be with you as always. Thank you all so much. The super chats and the calls. I wish we could have gotten to all the calls. I know Tyler screened a bunch of great ones. We didn't get to them. I promise we will get to them all next week, okay? So if you got something on your chest that you want to get off, give us a call again next week as we wrap up the season of Kenobi. I think we can maybe officially call it a season wrap-up as opposed to a series wrap-up. I'm hoping for more Kenobi. We'll see you next time. Appreciate it. Love you all so much. Thank you, Tyler. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Thanks.
For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.